Before we begin this episode, let's play a little game. Now, this episode is talking about like Star Wars series and spin-offs and all that stuff, one of which being The Mandalorian. Now, I know my wife, Caitlin, is very obsessed with Pedro Pascal. So, the second that she says, Daddy Pascal, we are going to collectively, you and me, scream like Pee Wee Herman does when he hears the secret word of the day. Cool? Great? Okay, on with the episode.
What have I got?
My friends are my power.
3, 2, 1. Fight!
Was that your entire idea?
Yeah.
What is going on, my guys, gals, and non-binary pals? Welcome back to Nerd Explosion, the weekly podcast where based on a monthly theme, we nerd out about whatever we want. I'm Cameron.
And I'm Kate.
And today we are closing off Star Wars month by... We already talked about all 9 movies, but you would think that was it. To the untrained ears and eyes, you would think the 9 movies in the Star Wars saga were all that she wrote. But nay. There are a plethora of just other Star Wars stuff. Most of it canon, most of it like kind of outside canon, but there is a lot. There's just a lot of Star Wars stuff, and I want to talk about, we could talk about some of that today, just kind of go over some of our favorite things about it. But first, and second, make sure you're following this podcast, because, we release episodes every Saturday, so do all the things that do all the stuff.
If you're into that kind of thing.
If you're into that kind of thing. But, yeah, let's...
Sorry, a bunch of nerds.
Let's dive in, shall we?
I'm going to apologize up front. I'm extra sassy today. I put on my sassy pants this morning.
So, I guess where do we begin? Now, I suppose I can ask you a question. So, I guess outside of the 9 movies that came out, what other Star Wars stuff are you familiar with?
we watched The Mandalorian. We watched the Obi-Wan series. You were watching something really cute the other day.
Tales of the Jedi.
Yeah, the Ahsoka episode was absolutely preshy. Mm-hmm. Other than that, I kind of watched the Clone Wars when it was like the animated show.
Yeah.
I kind of watched the Clone Wars when it was on, but I didn't watch it religiously, and I did not watch it in order. So I know a couple things here and there.
Yeah, with me, I didn't watch it fully either, but, I get the gist of, stuff that happened,
Yeah.
I get what happened. But, I know, it's...
Because that's where Ahsoka makes her debut, right? Is in the Clone Wars?
Essentially, yeah, that's where Ahsoka kind of makes her debut. But, as for me, Clone Wars, obviously, all the stuff I watched with you, Mandalorian, Obi-Wan, Tales of the Jedi, I watched a little bit of the Ahsoka series. As far as Star Wars video games, not a lot of them are canon, but the one that I wish is canon and what I kind of want to start off, just kind of right off the bat, just to get out of the way, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Now it's a video game for those of you that don't know, but it's one that I definitely want to fit somehow. I want them to make a movie out of it and have it somehow fit in Star Wars canon. Because Jedi Fallen Order, just for those of you who don't know, who haven't played it, focuses on Cal Kestis, who was a young Padawan during Order 66.
And survived, obviously. Yeah,
he survived. His master was killed and he escaped. And he was living out on a scrapper planet to kind of just hide from, the Empire and everything. But there's one day when a buddy of his almost falls to his death and he ends up using the Force. But that brings the Inquisitors to the planet looking for a Jedi. So then, Cal Kestis goes on the run. He gets picked up by Ser Junda and Grease, who are basically working for the rebels. And their whole mission is to try to find a Jedi holocron, because Sarah used to be a former Jedi. they're looking for a Jedi holocron, which contains a map of all the Force-sensitive children in the universe.
Which would be no bueno if it fell into the wrong hands.
And that's basically the whole thing. They're trying to find this. Meanwhile, the Inquisitors from the Empire are trying to hunt down Cal under the command of Darth Vader. And obviously, they get the holocron in the end, but Cal ends up destroying it because he's like, you know what? They can find their own path. And I'm sitting there like, okay, you could have still used that map, but fine, whatever.
Yeah, but babe, it's more dramatic if you destroy the thing you've spent the entire game looking for. It's symbolism. There is a sequel, Jedi Survivor, but I have not played it yet, and I don't necessarily know the story. But as far as making it into a movie, I could see them making it into a movie because I think Cameron Monaghan, who voices Cal Kestis, has actually. And he's
he does the mocap.
The mocap. And the character looks exactly like him too.
Literally, it's just Cameron Monaghan in a video game.
And can we talk about how hot Cameron Monaghan is for a second? Oh my god.
I mean, I don't know. People named Cameron are kind of.
I don't know, man. It's that red hair and them brown eyes. Give me every time.
But Cameron Monaghan, I think, and now I could be wrong on this, but I think he's come out and said that he's expressed interest in being live action Cal.
Yeah, he has, because I remember that being like kind of big news because for a while after he did Shameless, he said he was done acting.
Yeah, well, I think after Shameless is when he did Jedi Fallen Order, which I guess is different, on-screen acting versus doing motion capture and voice acting.
Right.
But I think with the success of Jedi Fallen Order and now Jedi Survivor, he's shown interest in being live-action Cal Kestis.
Because Cal Kestis was in... I know you just said it, but I totally forgot the name of the second game. Jedi Survivor?
Jedi Survivor.
He was the main character in that one too, right?
Yeah, it was the same... Basically the same. I don't want to say the same game, but like I said, I haven't played it. I don't know what the story is, but it basically continues off of Jedi Fallen Order.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And I think it's still dealing with like the Empire and stuff, and
fuck the Empire for real. So whatever. Okay, so that begs the question then: if they were to make it into a movie, canonically, where would you put it in the timeline?
Well, canonically. I totally forgot because I knew this a while ago when I played it, like where it actually takes place. I mean, obviously there would be the part with Cal as a Padawan, which would take place during Order 66. But I think...
So it would almost have to take place like right after the events of Revenge of the Sith.
I think it would take place sometime like well after Episode 3, but maybe before the events of Episode 4. Like somewhere in the middle there. Because there is a part... they did a holocron. Well, there is a part in Jedi Fallen Order where Sierra shows Cal what a holocron is because she has an extra one. Mm-hmm. And in this holocron is the message that Obi-Wan sent to all the Jedis to warn them about Order 66.
Well, so you would think, though, that if this... What did you call it? A holocron?
The holocron, yeah.
Okay. If that were the case, listen, I am caffeinated out of my fucking mind right now. Also, I'm running a high because I just had a really successful interview. Yay me. But in theory, if we were to jam this in the timeline, if you will. Sometimes I wish this was like recorded because I do fun things with my hands. So if you were to make a movie of Fallen Order and jam it into the timeline, you would think that this holocron thing would have Luke and Leia on it then because they're both Force sensitive.
I think it would, and
or that would be the implication anyway.
If they explored it, I'm sure they would pop up on there because I mean, like I said, they're still like obviously this is well after like the Empire is established and Darth Vader is a thing. But
Lord Vader, put some respect on his name.
I would say definitely the events, well, that and Jedi Survivor would definitely be somewhere in the middle between episode 3 and 4. But yeah, I would definitely love to see those become a movie or a series because, I mean, some of the actors are interested. So, I mean, come on, let's get on it, Lucasfilm. Moving on from that, I guess let's get into the real meat and potatoes of this whole thing. I guess let's start with Star Wars Clone Wars. Now, what do you remember from Clone Wars?
I just remember that Anakin takes on Ahsoka as a Padme, or as a
As a Padme.
Padawan. Listen, you know how I said I'm caffeinated out of my mind?
Oh my god, I don't know why my brain went to this, but I was just thinking
As she drinks more Dr. Pepper.
like Obi-Wan's like, oh, Anakin, you're gonna train a new Padawan, and this girl walks up, and Anakin's like, oh, what's your name? And no, wait, this would be before Padme dies. Never mind.
Yeah, because yeah.
It was a stupid joke. Stupid.
So I just remember Ahsoka kind of being like Anakin's Anakin.
Anakin's Anakin.
I remember them like butting heads a lot because she thinks she knows better, like Anakin did with Obi-Wan. And I remember Obi-Wan being like, haha, joke's on you, bitch.
Well, yeah, because Ahsoka like knows who she is. Like, she knows how powerful she can be, but she's also
immature and young, and she needs
she's still
guidance
immature,
and training.
and that's what Anakin tries to drive into her. For the Wikipedia, Star Wars The Clone Wars is an American animated television series created by George Lucas. It is part of the Star Wars multimedia franchise and is set predominantly between the events of Star Wars Episode 2 and Star Wars Episode 3. Lucas, who closely collaborated with supervising director Dave Filoni on the series, called it a continuation of the previous Genndy Tartakovsky produced 2003 Clone Wars series. So I never watched those, but I watched the Dave Filoni version, because the Genndy Tartakovsky series was, I mean, I liked the animation, but I never like showed interest because I thought it wasn't like canon at all.
Right.
But for context,
It is though, right? That's been established that Clone Wars is canon.
yeah, it is canon.
Yeah.
I don't know
So
about Tartakovsky's version. For context, those who don't know who Tartakovsky is, he's a Russian-American animator, and he's the main guy behind series such as Dexter's Lab, Samurai Jack.
So kind of
and-
that square, blocky.
Yeah, like think Samurai Jack, that's what the original Clone Wars series from 2003 was.
Oh, I think I would have hated that.
But
If I'm
this
being
series
honest.
this series came out in 2008. It debuted October 3rd, 2008 on Cartoon Network. And the basic gist of the series, it follows, a bunch of different stuff between the events of episode 2 and 3. Like, it focuses on different,
Before Anakin went all cuckoo bananas.
yeah, right. And, like, the relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin, Anakin trying to train Ahsoka to the best of his abilities, different groups of clone troopers. They really focus on making you care for certain clone troopers, like Commander Rex and all of those different guys. Just they actually had a great personality in the series, too.
Yeah.
But the basic gist of it is, like, it gets really serious. Like most cartoons of that era, it gets really serious towards the
It
end.
gets like really dark for no reason at the end.
There's one
Look
episode
at
I
you, Adventure
remember.
Time.
There's like a Sith that Yoda comes across, and the Sith makes Yoda have visions of stuff to come, like stuff that happens in like episode 3. Like you don't see it, but you hear it. And obviously, this all leads up to the events of 3. I think the last episode ends with like years later, Ahsoka coming to what was the site of like a battle where some clone troopers died, and she sees clone trooper helmets all over her and blah blah blah. And I think she encounters Darth Vader, but I might not be remembering it right. But no, overall, like, I really like the Clone Wars series. It just obviously introduced one of the best characters, Ahsoka Tano.
Well, and it kind of foreshadows Anakin's descent into.
It really puts more into that.
Yeah, because he technically speaking, though it wasn't really his fault, it was kind of Ahsoka's, because Ahsoka left.
Yeah,
And
at one
Anakin
point.
took that as a failure, which obviously did not reflect well on him and didn't reflect well on Obi-Wan. So their tension in the third movie makes way more sense if you know the events of the Clone Wars.
And that shows really like what type of, not just what type of person Ahsoka is, but what type of Jedi Ahsoka is. Because she neither wants to support the Jedi Council, nor is she messed up enough, or
She doesn't want to
dividends
join
in
the
dark side.
Sith, but she's not a
She
fan
wants,
of the Jedi.
she wants to walk that fine line, basically doing what is right, no matter what the means,
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people would consider that a gray Jedi, because they're neither, all good or all bad.
I thought she was a white Jedi.
Or a gray Jedi, white Jedi.
Or is that what Rey ends up being?
I think that's kind of what Rey ends up being. Because gray Jedis are essentially those who walk the middle line, who basically do what they feel is right, no matter the means.
Where they don't see it, and this, I'm guessing, is where the term gray comes from, is they don't see strictly black and white like a Jedi would.
Because there's a lot that could be said about the Jedis. Like, the Jedis aren't necessarily the good guys.
Well, from my perspective, the Jedi are evil.
Anakin wasn't entirely wrong.
I was just gonna say, the man had a point.
Like, there's...
Well, it's a good commentary on democracy in general, because each side is gonna view the other one as wrong. When in reality, neither one of them are great, but...
And that's what I love about a lot of these spin-offs. They explore more of the idea that the Jedi aren't the big, good guys, peace-loving people that they claim to be.
Like Ahsoka's whole point, not everything is black and white. There has to be some gray area.
Because the Jedi, as far as I know, they keep peace through means of law and order.
Right.
Instead of just peace, Going back to Star Wars, or Clone Wars, and kind of going over this cast, Matt Lanter in the series is Anakin, and a fantastic Anakin.
I was going to say, he played a phenomenal Anakin.
Like,
He's no Hayden Christensen.
Like, obviously, if Hayden Christensen wasn't available, I guess, to voice Anakin in this, but Matt Lanter does phenomenal. Like, he does he almost sounds like Hayden Christensen, but he also, brings his own thing to Anakin.
And it's funny that you say that, because I remember watching one episode of the Clone Wars, and me and my brother got into an argument because I was like, no, that's Hayden Christensen. And my brother was like, no, it's not.
And I was Christensen.
And I was like, yes, it is. And he was like, no, it's not. And I was like, it sounds just like him. And then finally, I don't remember who, but either my mom or my dad looked it up and was like, no, it's actually this actor. And my brother was all smug in his stupid face. And I was like, well, you could have fooled me. Because he really does. Like you said, he sounds a lot like Hayden Christensen, but he does bring his own personality to the character.
Him and the guy who voiced Obi-Wan too, James Arnold Taylor. He does a phenomenal Obi-Wan.
Yeah,
he watched that. He kind of has a little bit of Alec Guinness in him, but he also does it really well. It's almost like he combined, he put Alec Guinness Obi-Wan and Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan into a blender and came out with a delicious smoothie.
Of course I know him. He is me.
But he does sound a little more like Ewan McGregor's.
McGregor, yeah.
And James Arnold Taylor basically does Obi-Wan for everything that, needs an Obi-Wan voice actor.
Yeah. Well, he's
he
good
did it for Clone Wars. He did it for Star Wars Battlefront. He did it for Tales of the Jedi, which we'll get to. Oh, God, I just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
So he is basically the animated Obi-Wan Kenobi.
He is the voice. Ewan McGregor is... Kenobi. Ewan McGregor is the face of Obi-Wan. James Arnold Taylor is the voice.
Ewan McGregor is one of my favorite actors.
And you know what's the great thing about him?
But a lot of that is because I'm so in love with Obi-Wan.
You know what's the great thing about Ewan McGregor? I think he genuinely loves being Obi-Wan.
Oh, 100%. He lights up when he talks about it.
Just like Hayden Christensen. He genuinely loves being Star Wars. He'll take any opportunity to play.
Star Wars?
He loves being Star Wars. My true name is Rey Star Wars.
I'm saying that from a tweet. I got that from a tweet. I'm saying it so you don't.
Also, we should highlight in this Ashley Eckstein, who is the voice of Ahsoka. Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. D. Bradley Baker, I think, does a bunch of different voices in this, but one of the voices I know, he does the droids in Clone Wars, which, can we just talk about the droids?
Roger.
In Clone Wars? They're hilarious.
They are so hilariously bad at their jobs.
The droids in Clone Wars are such good comic relief. I saw a TikTok earlier where there was a droid that was posing as a clone trooper to kind of try to fool other clone troopers, but the way he was moving around, like he spoke like a clone trooper, but the way he was moving around, you could tell something was off. And he's like, "Oh no, nothing to worry about here. Everything is fine."
I am human.
And
I am human clone.
There was a flare that went off, and they're like, obviously, because the clone set off flares, they're like, "Oh, droids are coming," and the clone who was posing the droid that was posing as a clone trooper said, "Roger, Roger," and they kind of stopped for a second. One clone trooper just turns and just shoots the droid in the face.
Yeah, they are just like, I mean, we all make fun of the stormtroopers for being notoriously bad shots, but like the droids make the clone troopers
like
look like gods. I mean, they're just so hilariously inept.
Like they can hit stuff, they're just terrible at what they do.
They just don't know how to be droids is the problem.
I was trying to think of a funny moment, but I really can't. There's nothing that comes to mind. Let's see, who else? I mean, obviously, other notable voice actor names in this are Corey Burton, Phil Lamar, Ahmed Best, Jim Cummings, Clancy Brown, Jon
Who was
Favreau.
Jim Cummings?
Jim Cummings. I'm sure he did multiple different characters for this. I don't know what he did exactly. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go into this thing to see filmography. Jim Cummings filmography, animation. I'm gonna have to scroll a bit because I'm all the way in the 90s right now.
Because I'm all the way in the 90s.
I'm in the 90s. Did it.
God, I wish I was back in the 90s.
I don't. And I will stand by that statement.
Okay. It's a weird hill to die on,
he was
but all right.
Hondo Onaka in Clone Wars, as well as additional voices.
Additional voices.
The character of Hondo, and obviously he did like other like miscellaneous voices here and there. But yeah, Jim Cummings, fun, top notch, man, top notch. Let's see, reception. Okay, so what's funny here? Season. I'm looking at the reviews for like the different seasons of Clone Wars. Mm-hmm. 16 reviews on the first season gives it a 69% on Rotten Tomatoes. Season 2 doesn't have a rating. Season 3 has a 100% rating.
I do remember season 3 being a banger.
Season 4 doesn't have a rating. And then 5, 6, and 7 all have 100% ratings. Which is funny, because there was a film that I guess came out before this whole series even began. And that has an 18% on Rotten Tomatoes. So obviously they didn't let that low score and the critics get them down with the film. They went on to create a fucking banger of a series. But I guess in closing for that, just to wrap up that, Clone Wars is amazing, and I definitely will rewatch the series. I think on Disney Plus, they actually have like a playlist where you can watch essential episodes. So it's not every single episode, but it's like episodes that are
like
important.
Plot important episodes.
Basically no filler episodes. It's just like strictly important stuff.
Which would be cool, but honestly, some of those filler episodes were the funniest ones.
I guess moving on, how about next we talk about The Mandalorian?
Okay.
Now, The Mandalorian, let me just ramble.
As played by Poppy Pedro Pascal.
This is the second word of the day!
Or Poppy Pedro Pascal.
So, you might hear this after the recording, but I put a little message at the beginning of the episode for us and the listeners. Played a little game that once we started talking about The Mandalorian, we were gonna scream and cheer as soon as you said Daddy Pascal or anything related to that. So I hope the listeners at home screamed and cheered, and I'll probably add in something too. But I knew you were gonna mention that.
Okay, but like, am I wrong?
I mean, no, you're not wrong.
Thank you.
I just knew it was coming. So, literally, at the beginning of the episode, before the intro music even began, I was like, all right, listeners, here's the deal.
Like, Kate's in love with Pedro Pascal, so.
So, anybody listening, I done told you. I done told you she was going to say it.
He is front and center on my TikTok For You page, and I just love him. Like, he's just so... First of all, he's hot. But more importantly, he just seems like he's so authentically himself that he's like not afraid to be goofy.
He's so versatile too. Like
yeah,
I've seen him play multiple.
He played the Mandalorian.
He was Joel in Last of Us.
Yeah, and that was a more serious role. And then he does SNL skits where he dresses up like a Latina mom. Like
that's the hottest man I ever seen in my life.
he's so funny. I just love him.
I love the constant one I see of Pedro Pascal. Like immediately when I think of him, I think of the role he played in that Nicolas Cage movie. The Nicolas Cage movie where Nicolas Cage played himself.
Nicolas Cage playing Nicolas Cage.
They're driving down the road, and you know the music that's like, and you gotta say, or how did the song go?
I don't remember. He just kind of like looks over longingly with a big gold smile.
Music, sing your own special song. And Nicolas Cage just looks annoyed, looks over to Pedro Pascal, and Pedro Pascal is just sitting there, just like.
So funny.
Okay, now that I've stalled enough time to doodle Mandalorian. Mandalorian is an American space western television series created by...
I wouldn't call it a space western.
It's space western. Created by Jon Favreau for the streaming service Disney Plus. Is the first live-action series in the Star Wars franchise and begins 5 years after the events of the film Return of the Jedi. It follows a lone bounty hunter who protects a Force-sensitive child, Grogu, from remnant Imperial forces.
No, I'm sorry. I refuse to accept that. It's Baby Yoda.
It's Baby Yoda or nothing at all. 24 episodes total, 3 seasons. It released November 12th, 2019. And obviously spin-offs of this are The Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, and Skeleton Crew, which I have not seen. But the basic gist of Mandalorian, to kind of try to put it in my own words, it's the Mandalorian himself, you know, trying to get Baby Yoda back to his kind, and then also while dealing with, you know, trying to be the ultimate Mandalorian. But that kind of changes throughout the seasons. It kind of changes to, like, you know, maybe he doesn't want to be part of, you know, the Mandalore or whatever, or be the Mandalorians. He just wants to be, you know, himself. He just wants to be Din Djarin. I think that was his real name.
Din Djarin, yeah.
His actual name.
The Mandalorian.
But also with Baby Yoda, too, it ends up coming to a thing where I think the end of the first season, was it? Baby Yoda gets kidnapped by Moff Gideon. And they battle to get him back. And at one point, Luke Skywalker shows up and fights off Moff Gideon, and then also just kind of takes Baby Yoda, the Mandalorian, gives up Baby Yoda to Luke Skywalker so that Luke can be like, okay, I'm going to train him. You know, he's going to be, you know, we're going to work to revive the Jedi. Now, this is a very young Luke Skywalker, which a lot of people were kind of thrown off by at first because it's obviously somebody else's body, but the face they constructed
CGI'd
from
face.
Yeah, they CGI'd Mark Hamill into this guy's face.
It was a really good CGI because it was like, it looked natural. It looked like it belonged there. Let me tell you,
natural air quotes.
I was fucking hyped when he entered the frame.
It's funny seeing behind the scenes photos of those because obviously there's somebody else being Luke, but then behind the camera is just Mark Hamill just sitting there.
Yeah, just watching.
Just watching. I think he did the voice too. Like he did his best to sound like his younger self.
But like, to be honest, Mark Hamill, okay, first of all, Mark Hamill is the goat of all goats.
That's why he's the goat. The goat.
He didn't even have to try that hard to sound like himself from the 80s because, like, he just is. You know, like... Well,
obviously his voice is not as high-pitched as it was.
Well, no, it's deeper now, obviously.
It's a lot
that happens
deeper.
With age. But it was one of those things where it was like, oh, yeah, that's fucking Mark Hamill. Like...
Actually,
That's
side
young Luke
note,
Skywalker.
side tangent. This has nothing to do with Star Wars, but speaking on like voice actors and their voices changing, I saw a TikTok a little bit ago with the cast of Family Guy sitting down, which that's, there's something related to Star Wars with that I'll get to towards the end of the episode. But it was Seth MacFarlane, God, what's her name? Whoever voices Lois, Mila Kunis, and Seth Green. They were all kind of sitting, just talking, whatever. It was like a thing where they were eating, but also like talking to each other. Mm-hmm. And they were talking about like how their voice changes so much. And then Seth Green said something, and that really kind of solidified that point, because Seth Green's voice has changed dramatically.
Yeah.
Over the years. Like, his voice has definitely gotten a lot deeper, like significantly
Well, and
deeper.
you have to think about that like vocal strain that you put on your voice every day if you're a voice actor and you're doing
Well, it's like the same with The Simpsons, kind of.
Oh, yeah, the voice actor for Marge is not doing well.
Yeah, I don't think she's got many years left in her to do that Marge voice. Dan Castella's kind of hanging in there. Like, he can still kind of do Homer, but it's rough.
Ow.
But I guess, getting back to Star Wars, the other things that happen in this is we come across Bo-Katan, who I believe was a character from Clone Wars, so a lot of different characters from Clone Wars show up. Ahsoka shows up in this series. She's the one that initially travels to where Luke is to see how Baby Yoda is doing. And then one of the biggest things in the series too is Baby Yoda is given a choice by Luke to either stay and train as a Jedi, because Luke can see that obviously Baby Yoda is struggling and
right.
misses Danny Mandalorian. Dadalorian. So Luke kind of gives him a choice. He's like, all right, you can stay here, learn the Force, and become a Jedi, or you could return to your dad. And Baby Yoda ends up going back to his daddy. Din Djarin?
Yeah, Din Djarin.
Daddylorian?
The Daddylorian.
Daddylorian. God, what else? I can't think of
that
really.
Series legit made me cry so many times. It's not
and Boba Fett shows up in this series too. Boba Fett shows back up.
Because Boba Fett was like, quote, the original Mandalorian, right?
Well, he never was,
or was
actually.
that Jango Fett?
I guess that would technically be Jango Fett, because all Boba Fett really did was just take his dad's armor and become a bounty hunter.
Yeah.
But Boba Fett shows up in this, and this actually leads to a good spin-off, Book of Boba Fett, where Boba Fett basically gets revenge on Jabba for all the shit that he put him through. And, I mean, it wasn't that great of a series. Like, it wasn't bad. It didn't really stick with me, you know? You get what I mean? You catch my drift?
I got bored of it after the second episode, so I didn't watch the whole thing.
I mean, I don't really blame you, but I mean, if you enjoy Book of Boba Fett, good on you, but it just really wasn't my thing. Like, Mandalorian was definitely more engaging for me.
But again, Pedro Pascal wasn't in the Book of Boba Fett, so I lost all interest.
Well, he was for like a
Briefly.
couple episodes. I think, like 1 or 2 episodes I think he popped up in. Another one that's kind of based off of that whole thing, like Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, was the Ahsoka series. And that basically focuses on Ahsoka. Now, I didn't watch the whole Ahsoka series, but this basically continues from the events of like Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, like in that part of the timeline.
Because they're all kind of happening simultaneously.
They're all kind of happening simultaneously. I didn't watch the full series, but I do know there's a part where Ahsoka goes through some stuff, or she's like meditating or whatever, and she has a vision of like her younger self in the Clone Wars and Hayden Christensen actually pops up in this series to play not just a young Anakin, but kind of like Episode 3 Anakin and Darth Vader. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's this whole thing.
Is that when she tells him he got old?
I think so. But I just remember
she
this.
says something about like you've changed, and he says you haven't, or something.
I think so, because there's this whole thing where they're like, she's imagining herself back in the Clone Wars, and there's a part where like Anakin runs off, but then comes back with a red lightsaber. I think this whole thing, she's trying to battle Darth Vader. Like I said, I haven't watched the series, so I can't really comment further without me sounding like an idiot, but I'll definitely give it a watch after this. What else? Oh, I suppose this is a good time to actually tell you about the series that I watched last night.
2 nights ago?
2 nights ago. Tales of the Jedi.
Tales of the Jedi.
Oh, I had Clone Wars notes too. God, I forgot to mention that. I'm a stupid.
Why are you the suck?
But I guess to go over that, so it's, because otherwise he's going to bomb me if I don't, going back to Clone Wars, there are key story arcs throughout each of throughout the whole series. There's the Mortis arc, which is an important arc where Anakin faces visions of his future, shedding light on his destiny as the Chosen One. There's the Siege of Mandalore arc, which this arc ties directly into the events of Star Wars Episode 3, showing Ahsoka Tano's role in the final days of the Clone Wars. There's the Umbara arc, which focuses on the moral complexities of war and showcases the challenges faced by the clone troopers under questionable leadership. And then there's the Order 66 arcs. Various episodes explore the consequences and foreshadowing of the infamous Order 66, which ultimately leads to the fall of the Jedi Order. So there's all that. But yeah, going back to I forgot to mention that with Clone Wars, so that's my bad. But moving on, now I just watched this like 2 nights ago, like I said, Star Wars Tales of the Jedi. And they're really good episodes. I definitely recommend them. They're really short. They're like under 20 minutes. But it gives you some good context into like other things going on.
Yeah.
Like there's episode 1, which focuses on Ahsoka. A year after her birth, an infant Ahsoka Tano is taken on her first hunting trip by her mother, Pav T, as is customary for their people. While hunting, they are stalked by a large predatory animal which kidnaps Ahsoka. Pav T returns to the village for help, but is surprised to see Ahsoka arrive at the village soon after riding the animal, having subdued it in the forest. Gantika, a village elder, realizes that Ahsoka has a strong connection to the Force. So that whole first episode is basically the village, Ahsoka being born, and then them realizing like, oh, she has a strong connection to the Force.
Yeah.
She's Force sensitive.
And a baddie at that.
And
Can we just be honest?
She's 1 in this episode.
Okay, well, she's still a badass, first of all.
That's a badass infant.
And second of all,
that baby's badass.
And second of all, she grows up to be a baddie. Deny it. I fucking dare you.
I mean, she is played by Rosario Dawson in the Ahsoka series, so.
And Rosario Dawson is fucking fine.
I agree. Episode 2, Tales of the Jedi. Jedi Master Dooku and his Padawan learner, Qui-Gon Jinn, find the kidnapped son of Senator Dagdanet in a dilapidated village where the locals are struggling due to the senator's corruption. Dagdanet arrives with troops and attacks the villagers. Dooku, angered by the corrupt senator, threatens to kill him with the Force. Qui-Gon and the senator's son convince Dooku to spare Dagdanet, and the son promises to help the villagers. So this is interesting because this actually focuses on Count Dooku, like back when he was.
That explains why Dooku abandoned the Jedi Order too.
Well, not quite yet. We'll get to that.
Kind of. It was.
But this is way back when he was a Jedi Master, and shows him actually being a master to Qui-Gon, which was kind of alluded to in Episode 2, but it wasn't like severely
it wasn't
driven
outright
home.
Said, yeah.
But yeah, I really like this, and it's a young Qui-Gon Jinn, all scrappy headed and whatnot.
Scrappy headed.
A naked face Count Dooku. Like obviously, like I really like this whole thing because obviously it shows he's struggling to, he's struggling with the dark side where he almost kills the senator. But the whole thing with that is that you kind of feel for Dooku because he's doing that, like he almost kills the senator because these other people have suffered. So he almost kills somebody because he made others suffer.
Like his heart is in the right place, but it goes against that black and white Jedi Order.
There's more that explains Dooku's thing, because the next two episodes also focus on Dooku. Episode 3, Dooku and Jedi Master Mace Windu recover the body of Jedi Council member Katri from Raxus Secundus. Dooku insists on investigating Katri's death against orders, and they discover that Katri was killed by guards who wanted to stop corrupt Senator Larrick from draining Raxus's resources. At Katri's funeral, Windu reveals that he has been given the vacant Jedi Council spot instead of Dooku, and attributes this to Dooku's rule breaking. So this basically shows that the reason Dooku kind of went into the dark side and wasn't so fond of the Jedi is because he disagreed with how the Jedi handle things. And this is where I bring up the whole, like, Jedi, they achieve peace through law and order.
Right.
And Dooku's just like, no, how
That's
about
bullshit.
let's do things this way. Like, we should just do peace for the sake of peace instead of because, laws say it. And there's all these things, like, obviously he wants to do what he feels is right, but the Jedi Council is like, well, no, we can't do that. And he's like, why not? And Jedi Council's like, oh, because we said so. Like, he basically, and this...
Because that would require change and restructure, and we're not going to do that.
And that's the whole thing. I think that's the whole thing with the Jedi Council. They don't want anything to change. They don't want restructure. They just want everything to stay peaceful the way it is.
So again, going back to episode 3, Anakin wasn't necessarily wrong.
Anakin... Hashtag Thanos was right.
He didn't go about it the right way, but man's had a point.
Episode 4 of Tales of the Jedi. Following the secret plan of the Sith Lord Darth Sidious, Dooku poses as Jedi Master Sifo-Dyas and deletes all records of the planet Kamino from the Jedi archives. Now, I don't know if you heard me when I was watching this episode, but as soon as he did that, I out loud was like, oh, I get it now!
I was wondering what that was about.
Because, in episode 2, obviously Obi-Wan was trying to travel to Kamino, but he couldn't find any records. This shows why there's no records.
So it's canon then.
Because Dooku, yeah, this is all canon. Because Dooku, under the orders of Darth Sidious, deleted those records. Because he posed as Sifo-Dyas, as Jedi Master Sifo-Dyas. He deleted those records, which is why Obi-Wan couldn't find Kamino in episode 2. It all makes sense.
And we only had to wait 20 fucking years for those answers.
Also, in this one, this is during the events of Phantom Menace. So at one point, we did an interaction between Dooku and Qui-Gon, like older Qui-Gon, like bearded Qui-Gon, as we know him in Phantom Menace, who is actually voiced by Liam Neeson.
Oh, live, love Liam Neeson.
Like, literally, like, Liam Neeson came back to voice Qui-Gon, which I was really happy to hear.
Yeah.
But in this, obviously, they couldn't get Christopher Lee to voice Count Dooku because, he did.
I was going to say, didn't he die?
But Corey Burton does a great Count Dooku. Corey Burton, I also know from... although, that's the thing. With Corey Burton, he does a great Count Dooku, but I can't hear his voice without hearing Yen Sid from Kingdom Hearts. He does that voice too. He's Yen Sid in Kingdom Hearts. I hear that every time. Like, I was watching this series and I was expecting Dooku just to be like, Sora.
Oh my god.
Where was I anyway? So obviously, like I said, this takes place during the events of Phantom Menace, which we all know what happened. Qui-Gon gets killed by Darth Maul. When Qui-Gon is killed by Darth Maul, Dooku confronts Sidious about Qui-Gon's death. Also, I should add, in this episode too, another character that pops up, Yaddle, which they actually give her time to shine in this. This lesser-known Star Wars character
She's
finally
one of
has
Yoda's
her...
peoples, right?
Huh?
She's one of Yoda's peoples, right?
Yeah, she's one of Yoda's people. But she has her moment to shine, and she's a member of the Jedi Council. Dooku is followed by Jedi Master Yaddle, who tries to reason with Dooku, but Dooku kills Yaddle on Sidious's orders. This solidifies his fall to the dark side of the Force. So...
You we're supposed to destroy the Sith, not join them.
Yeah, Yaddle follows Dooku to this whole thing, or to where he meets up with Sidious, and she tries to convince him, like, no, you don't have to do this. Like, we can figure out something. And Dooku basically...
that's kind of how Yoda becomes, quote-unquote, the last of his kind, right?
Basically.
Until he dies, and then Grogu is discovered.
Yeah, but Yaddle tries to bring him back to the light, and Dooku's just like, it's too late.
Yeah.
Like, because at this point, Sidious, or Palpatine, has already corrupted him way too much.
Step Emperor Pep Pep?
Pop, pop, pep, pep. But no, he's Darth Sidious at this point, remember?
Treason, then. I am the Senate. This was quote movie references throughout this whole episode.
The end of this episode was kind of hard hitting too, because there's a point where Dooku thinks he's won by like crushing Yaddle in this door, but then Yaddle opens it back up with the Force, but then it loses her strength and kind of collapses out of it, and she's struggling on the floor. And
that's depressing.
I forget what she says to Dooku, but Dooku's last words to Yaddle were, "Then let me give you peace." Lights up his lightsaber and kills her.
I mean, you could argue that it was a mercy at that point.
I think it was a mercy. It definitely was a mercy at that point.
He could have let her suffer, but
because Dooku, what I liked about Count Dooku is that he's a Sith, but he's like a classy Sith. Like, he doesn't just kill for the sake of killing.
He's a bad guy, but he's classy.
Like, he doesn't just kill. Like, I know, like, I'm sorry I'm bringing this back to the Kingdom Hearts, but, like, remember when we did the episode where we were talking about organization members and I talked about Luxord?
Yeah.
Luxord, he's one of the organization members that, like, he doesn't necessarily want to take out Sora. He doesn't want to fight for the sake of being evil. Like, he wants a fair fight.
Well, and he kind of thinks that his point of view is correct.
And like that's what I think with Count Dooku. Like, he doesn't want to, kill for the sake of killing. Like, he wants a fair fight.
Right. And once he saw that Yaddle was suffering, he was like, well, I could let you suffer, or I could just kill you and give you peace. Which in the end is what he ended up doing.
And then he ends up later taking on both Obi-Wan and Anakin.
And losing epically.
Good. Twice the pride, double the fall. And he gets his head chopped off.
Kill him.
Because, yeah. Should I do it? And Palpatine's just like, do it.
Kill him.
Kill him. Do it. Episode 5, A Tales of the Jedi. Episode 5. Disappointed with the simple battle simulations that his Padawan Ahsoka has to train with, Anakin Skywalker instead has her face a large group of clone troopers armed with stun guns. He repeats this training with her over the course of the Clone Wars. At the end of the war, the clones turn on the Jedi with the enactment of Order 66. Ahsoka uses the skills she gained during these drills to survive the attacking clones. It doesn't actually show it, but I think that might have been a part in Clone Wars.
Which is crazy to think that she's doing all this while at the same time Anakin's killing younglings.
Basically. Well, more towards the end, yeah. But yeah, with this episode, there was like these little globe droids. I think you've seen them from like New Hope or whatever.
Yeah. That
Ahsoka was training with, and Anakin is just like, no, this is bullshit. Let me give you a real challenge. So he Commander Rex with the clone troopers and a bunch of clone troopers, he gets them all together to basically train her. So she stands, clone troopers stand in a circle around her, and they set their blasters to stun. Mm-hmm. And what her training is she has to sense it and block each stun blast.
Yeah.
And she gets stunned quite a few times, but then she gets up and Anakin's just like, okay, let's go again and again and again, and has her repeat it multiple times. Mm-hmm. And over the course of the Clone Wars, she keeps up this training until it leads up to what I'm sure is a moment in the Clone Wars animated series where Commander Rex is obviously not one of the clones that turned, but wants to make other clone troopers think that he turned.
Right.
And he basically brings Ahsoka into this room full of clone troopers under, quote, arrest, quote. And it's implied that Ahsoka used all this training that she did to survive that attack.
Yeah.
Which
makes sense.
Definitely.
Because otherwise she would have got too.
Episode 6. I don't remember if there's another episode, but this is the last one I have on my notes. Episode 6. During the funeral of Padme Amidala, Senator Bail Organa tells Ahsoka to contact him if she needs help. Sometime later, while in hiding, Ahsoka is seen using the Force to help someone who is in danger. She is reported to the Galactic Empire, and an Inquisitor is sent to capture her. Ahsoka kills the Inquisitor and contacts Organa, who comes to collect her the next day. She tells him that she is ready to fight against the Empire.
And he has little baby Leia at this point, too.
I think he already had little baby Leia at this point.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the last episode. I thought I had completely left something out. What about Tales of the Empire? You want to hear about Tales of the Empire, even though I didn't watch it?
I mean, sure.
Okay, so Tales of the Empire, Episode 1. During the Clone Wars, General Grievous and the Separatist droid army massacred the Night Sisters of Dathomir, except for Morden Elsbeth, who is saved by the nearby mountain clan. Against the wishes of the clan's leader, the Matron, Morden and 3 young clan members attempt to recover Night Sister weapons. They are attacked by droids and the Matron's daughter is killed. The Matron saves the daughters, but abandons Morden. Now, hearing this definitely makes a lot of sense and definitely solidifies that this is canon.
Yeah.
Because in Jedi Fallen Order, in the game, there's Marin, who's one of the Night Sisters you find on Dathomir, who tells Cal a story about a Jedi who came and murdered all the Night Sisters.
And she's talking about this.
She's talking about General Grievous.
General
So this basically just solidifies that. So I'm like, oh, this is all canon.
Yeah.
It's all coming together.
Well, Grievous was a bag of dicks in his own right, too.
Your lightsaber will make a fine addition to my collection.
General Kenobi.
And then the man's coughing all the time. Get the man a breath mint or a cough drop.
Right? Come on, Grievous, get it together.
General Kenobi.
You are a literal robot. Figure it out.
You are a bold one. Which, there should be something that kind of dives, that I want there to be something that dives into General Grievous's history. Because I think it's implied that, or I saw somewhere that he wasn't always, like, a droid. Like, he was a living being at some point. Because, I mean, you see in episode 3, during the fight with Obi-Wan and General Grievous, there's one part where he blasts, he, like, opens his chest cavity, and there's actual organs in there. So, at one point, I think he was a living being.
They did it with Vader, so I don't see why they couldn't do it with Grievous.
So, it's like, what's his story? What's his at? What's his Insta? What's his OnlyFans?
Gross. That's something nobody needs to see.
General Grievous' OnlyFans.
Thank you for never having that image released from my mind now.
Want to see more? Pay me $10 a month.
Put his whole Grievous
Hashtag NSFW. Hashtag tit.
Put his whole fucking Grivussy into it.
It's all Grivussy.
Gross. Listen, I'm not here to slut shame. Get your bag. However, Grievous is something I do not need to see.
Grivussy fucking sent me.
Well, I had to say it twice because you didn't hear it the first time, and I was like, no, this needs to be appreciated.
I was like, no, he needs to hear this. Episode 2 of Tales of the Empire. During the reign of the Empire, Morden becomes magistrate of the resource-rich planet Corvus and promises to bring jobs and prosperity for the local population. She designs a new TIE Defender fighter, but her proposal to make it for the Empire is rejected by Moff Izdan. Admiral Thrawn takes an interest in the proposal and sends his assassin, Rook, to attack Morden. After she holds her own, Thrawn accepts her project and offers his assistance. I have to look more into Admiral Thrawn because he's a character from, like, novels and stuff.
Yeah.
That they have now brought into, like...
Live action. Animated.
Thrawn, you know, obviously he's a big name in the Empire. He's blue.
It's blue.
Smurf-looking ass. Lars Mikkelsen is Admiral Thrawn in this, which I don't know who Lars Mikkelsen is, but I'm assuming they're related to Mads Mikkelsen. And Mads Mikkelsen Even though I haven't seen him in a lot, a lot of people consider him like a legendary actor.
You're legendary. Boom roasted.
Hey, thanks. Episode 3, Tales of the Empire. After the fall of the Empire, former Corvus citizen Nadura returns as an ambassador of the New Republic. She demands that Mordin step down as magistrate due to her mistreatment of the locals and allow Corvus to join the New Republic. Mordin, who has received a vision that she believes is key to the future, kills Nadora and begins burning down Corvus's forests. Before she dies, Nadora sends a distress signal to Bo-Katan Kryze. So, Bo-Katan pops up in this.
I was going to say, why do I know the name Bo-Katan?
Because she was in The Mandalorian.
That's right.
She was the head of the Mandalore. Like the road bounty hunters.
Yeah, and she pissed off Daddy Pascal because she took her helmet off.
And she was a rightful owner of the Darksaber.
Yeah.
Which Daddy Lorian failed to wield properly.
Yeah, he really did let me down with that, I'm not going to lie.
And eventually he was just like, here, you can have this piece of shit.
He's like, this thing sucks, actually. I don't want it anymore.
Also, this just popped into my head, and I'm going to kick myself in the ass because I failed to mention it. Moff Gideon in The Mandalorian, played by Giancarlo Esposito. God damn, do I love that man.
I fucking love
Giancarlo
Giancarlo
Esposito.
Esposito. He's really good at being the bad guy.
Right, like he did in this. He's a bad guy in Breaking Bad, which I've never watched, but I have seen the scene where he dies.
He was also in Don't Tell Me. Don't Tell Me. It's on the tip of my tongue. Far Cry 6.
Yes, good job. Yeah, he's like the main villain in I forget the villain's name, but he is the main villain in Far Cry 6. Like, it's literally just him.
I'm like legit impressed because I can picture it, but I was never. Listen, everybody here knows that I'm bad with names, okay? And I mix stuff up all the time. But I could picture it, and I knew it was like Last of Us-esque, but I knew it wasn't The Last of Us.
I mean, Far Cry is ways away from Last of Us.
Well, it kind of like, see, and I don't know anything about video games, but to me, it was giving like Last of Us meets
Far Cry
Red Dead meets...
Well, Far Cry games, they're basically, the whole plots of them are like, hey, there's an evil person trying to take over this country, you have to stop them.
Yeah, because Far Cry 4 was that weird fucking cult leader one, right?
4?
Or was that 5?
I think it was 4. I think
with
4
the
was...
fucking stupid man
with
bun.
Joseph Seed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, never have I
love that one.
Never have I ever wanted to punch a fictional character in the face more than I wanted to punch Joseph Seed in the face.
Although that wasn't necessarily a country, that was more just the state of Montana.
He was fucking cuckoo bananas. But like in a dangerous way.
Because in that, like, you didn't just fight him.
Sorry,
you had
am I
to take
yelling?
her.
I feel like I'm yelling.
No, speak your truth, Kane.
I just like I know this has nothing to do with Star Wars, but every time his stupid mug came across the screen, I wanted to get up and punch the TV. I was like, I'm so sick of I'm so sick of looking at your ass.
I'm so sick of your ass.
I was like, get out of my motherfucking face.
Get out of my motherfucking face.
Get out of my goddamn face.
That's right. Get out of my way.
But anyway, I'm impressed with myself that I remembered that.
Episode 4 of Tales of the Empire. Following Order 66 and the Galactic Republic's reorganization of... let me try that again. Following Order 66 and the Galactic Republic's reorganization into the Empire, former Jedi Barriss Offee, who is serving a life sentence after turning down the Jedi Order and attacking the Jedi Temple, is brought to the under-construction Fortress Inquisitorius to be trained by the Grand Inquisitor. After she kills a fellow recruit in a duel, Barriss is welcomed as an Inquisitor and introduced to her new master, the Sith Lord Darth Vader.
Darth Vader?
Darth Vader.
Darth Vader, you say?
Darth Vader, I say. Episode 5. Barriss and the Fourth Sister, another Inquisitor, are sent to find a Jedi who is in hiding. They question some villagers and learn that the Jedi is on a nearby mountain. Barriss becomes disillusioned with the Empire when the Fourth Sister murders the villagers and then cuts down the Jedi after Barriss convinces them to surrender. Barriss uses the Force to push the Fourth Sister off the mountain and then aids the wounded Jedi. So it's another case of like, you know, I don't like how you do things, basically.
I mean, that seems pretty par for the course with a lot of these.
It's very par for the course for a lot of these, just to be like, hey man, I didn't sign up for this. Episode 6. And this is the last episode of Tales of the Empire. Years after leaving the Inquisitors, Barriss is a healer and teacher. She is visited by a family who are trying to protect their Force-sensitive child from the Fourth Sister who follows them. Barriss traps the Fourth Sister in a maze as the family escapes, and attempts to convince her to turn to the light side of the Force. When she accidentally stabs Barriss with a lightsaber, the Fourth Sister feels regret and chooses to carry Barriss to safety. So it's basically a point that like the Fourth Sister is so like intently convinced by the dark side that she almost forgets for a second like the camaraderie that she used to have.
Right.
So when she ends up killing this person who was at one point their friend, she's like, oh wait, like what am I doing? Like, you know, it's like that one part with in episode 3 after Anakin essentially, you know, quote unquote kills Mace Windu. He has that moment of where he's just like, what have I done?
Right.
Like he
kind of has that moment where he realizes like, ooh,
it's like,
this might have been a mistake.
I'm about to go down a different path.
I have fucked up. Like I think at that point you're dangerously close to past the point of no return.
Is there anything else you want to talk about with that, or any other like stuff related to Star Wars, or stuff related to like the canon, I suppose?
No, I mean you covered pretty much everything. Your Star Wars knowledge is more vast than mine.
The only other thing that I keep seeing, and it's not worth talking about because it hasn't come out yet. It's supposed to come out on June 4th. The Acolyte.
I am kind of interested to see what that's all about.
From what I know, apparently it's set like way before the events of Phantom Menace. So we're getting like prequel.
Because the Phantom Menace was the first one, right?
It was the first movie. So
Yeah.
we're getting stuff that happened before that. Like at least a good 100 years, I think, before that.
It was the prequel to Luigi's Mansion House.
And I saw a thing that I guess the people behind it kind of based a lot of the stuff off of the game Knights of the Old Republic. Like Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic.
Sure.
Which I haven't played, but I've heard a lot of people say good things about Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah.
And it seems like Disney's trying to pull from stuff like that and, you know, put it into like more like Star Wars like shows and movies.
Well, you know, Star Wars is such a big household name that you got to make your money where you can.
Right, so they're pulling stuff from like novels and games and stuff and bringing it into like the canon.
Yeah.
But I guess real quick to close out this episode, you know, we could talk about stuff that isn't canon. Parodies. What are some of your favorite parodies of Star Wars?
So my favorite Star Wars parody, and I quoted it in one of our previous episodes, is the Robot Chicken with Emperor Palpatine.
Oh, yeah, the Star Wars Robot Chicken parody is
so
awesome.
Fucking funny. When he's going up the escalator and all the stormtroopers are coming down, and one after the other, they're like,
Stormtrooper.
"My lord," and he's like, "Stormtrooper."
My lord, Stormtrooper.
And then eventually he just gets so annoyed, he's like, "Go fuck yourself."
Go fuck yourself. And then the last
one, he's like, "Go fuck yourself." And the last one just goes,
"Oh."
And then when they're in the elevator, and he's like, "No thanks, I'll just wait for the next one." And they're like, No, come on, plenty of room. And he was like, "Listen, if I wanted to smell like a fucking fillet of fish, I would do that." And he was like,
"That's hurtful, man.
Hey,
well, next time, just let it go.
Just let it go." And then the whole like, "What do you mean they blew up the Death Star? Who's they?"
He's talking about some guys in
and
like
then he's
his
like, "Oh my god,
meeting
no, he's
room.
crying." It's
Gets a call
so
from
funny.
Darth Vader. He's like, "Hey, it's Vader. How's my favorite Sith?" Wait, hold on. What? What do you mean they blew up the Death Star? Who's they?
Get your 6'2" asthmatic ass back here.
And then,
so fucking funny.
What I love is he gets another call during that, and he's like, "What? I'm very busy right now." Oh, well, where are they doing? Oh, just give me a turkey on white. I don't know. Coleslaw, I guess. I'm not even gonna eat it. Like, somebody literally calls
So
it for a
fucking
lunch
funny.
order.
So funny.
It's like, at one point, I guess Darth Vader starts trying it, and he's like, "Oh, jeez, he's trying." It's like, hey, I didn't mean to yell. I'm under a lot of stress lately. A bunch of fucking teenagers blew up my Death Star.
A bunch
I
of
didn't
fucking
mean to yell.
teenagers blew my Death Star.
Just get back here. I love you too.
So fucking funny. I love the Robot Chicken Star Wars.
There's a part where there's one bit they did where Jar Jar shows back up to Darth Vader, and Jar Jar is just annoyingly just like, Eddie, Eddie, and then Darth Vader just shoots him out into space.
Yeah, poor Jar Jar. They didn't have to do him like that.
The Family Guy parodies are pretty good
The
too.
Family Guy parodies were pretty good too. I really liked the one where they fall into the trash compactor and they're trying to like get the sofa out.
Oh yeah, they're just trying to like, oh, just turn it that way. They're like, oh, it's wedged. All right, just take it off of the ship. I'll hold it like this, and
It's so funny.
and then it goes to the shot where they're like flying by out in space, and he's just still holding on. He's like, easy.
And it's like, I like that too, where it's like all of the shots are missing and they're just like they're kind of running, but just like casually with this couch.
Right,
It's so fucking funny.
like they're not getting shot like while carrying this couch.
I think they even make a comment about it too, about the bad aim.
Oh yeah, and there's. And yeah, they're like, good thing stormtroopers are bad aims, and then it's like, I think it's some stormtroopers like just shooting wildly. They're like, man, it's hard to see in these things.
Man, it's hard to see these things. So good.
I think my other favorite moment is, obviously there's the part in,
And I love Stewie as Darth Vader, because like who wouldn't?
oh yeah, Stewie's Darth Vader. But there's the part, obviously, in Empire Strikes Back, where Leia calls Han a scruffy-looking nerf herder. So obviously they get to that part, and Lois is Leia, Peter is Han Solo, and Lois is like, "You scruffy-looking nerf herder," and then he punches her, and he's like, "You can't use that word. Only we can use that word."
Only we can use that word. Just like punches her right in her face. So good.
But all right, yeah, continue.
The Family Guy ones were good. The Robot Chicken ones will always be my favorite.
Yeah, they definitely were a little more funny because they weren't afraid to like go there with the humor.
Stormtrooper.
But I will say, out of any parody, nothing beats Spaceballs.
Oh my god, I quote Spaceballs probably daily. It's so I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes.
So I'm trying to remember the whole plot of Spaceballs, but it's basically a parody of Star Wars.
Okay,
but
just
it's
so we need another Druish princess.
actually, talk about Spaceballs for a
good.
second. I'm gonna Google.
The humor in Spaceballs is so fucking just chef's kiss. When they're fucking combing the desert and they're like, "Do you think we took this literally?" And they're like literally taking a
No, you
comb.
idiot! You said come to desert, so we're combing it.
What did
Find
you-
anything yet?
No,
Nothing
sir.
yet, sir.
Have you guys found anything? No, nothing yet. What about,
How
you,
about
guys?
you guys?
We ain't found shit. And they're combing with like a pick. So good. It's so funny. And fucking Pizza the Hut. I mean, are you kidding me?
Spaceballs came out in 1987. It mostly parodies Star Wars, but it also throws in parodies of like Star Trek, Alien, Wizard of Oz, 2001: Space Odyssey, Planet of the Apes, and Transformers. So basically, not just Star Wars, but it kind of throws everything else in there. The film stars Bill Pullman, John Candy, rest in peace, and Rick Moranis, with a supporting cast including Daphne Zuniga, Dick Van Patten, George Weiner, Lauren Yarnell, and the voice of Joan Rivers.
Who is Joe Rivers?
She is what's her name? The robot.
Oh, yeah,
Vespa.
yeah. Vespa. Okay, yeah.
Or no, not Vespa. Sorry, Dot Matrix.
Or yeah, because the princess was Vespa.
Okay, so in Spaceballs,
What did I tell you about knocking before you come in? Sorry, sir. What did you see? I didn't see you playing with your dolls again.
It's like, did you see anything? No, sir. I didn't see you playing with your dolls again.
So funny.
In Spaceballs, heroic mercenary Lone Star, played by Bill Pullman, and his alien sidekick Barf, played by John Candy, rescue Princess Vespa of Druidia and her droid Dot Matrix from being captured by the Spaceballs, led by President Stroob, played by the legendary Mel Brooks. I don't know why. Every time I hear Mel Brooks' name, I think of the beginning of Robin Hood Men in Tights, where that village is burning down, and the one guy's like, "There must be another way of doing the credits," and the other guy's like, "That's right. Every time they make a Robin Hood movie, they burn our village down." And then in somebody's room, it just says directed by Mel Brooks, and they're all like, "Leave us alone, Mel Brooks." Yeah, Princess Droop. Oh, sorry.
There is one thing, and it's not necessarily like a parody, but it's kind of Star Wars adjacent, is the episode of The Big Bang Theory where James Earl Jones and Carrie Lee Fisher guest starred.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned this before.
James Earl Jones knocks on Carrie Fisher's door and runs away and leaves Sheldon standing there, I think. And,
Well, he runs too.
or yeah, he runs too, and she opens the door and she goes, "It's not funny anymore, James!" Or, "It's been 20 years, it's not funny
Oh,
anymore."
yeah, she says it's not funny anymore, James.
and
then James is
then
like,
you hear him off screen go, "Then why am I still laughing?" So funny.
Yeah, uses Principal Vespa as ransom to obtain Druidia's heir for their own planet. However, the heroes get stranded on a desert moon where they encounter the wise Yogurt, also played by Mel Brooks, who teaches Lone Star about the metaphysical power known as the Schwartz.
The Schwartz. May the Schwartz
Meanwhile,
be with you.
Spaceball Commander's Dark Helmet, played by Rick Moranis,
I
and
love
Colonel Sanders,
Rick Moranis.
lead the search for them, but are hindered by their
His name
incompetence.
was Colonel Sanders.
His name, what's wrong? What's the matter, Colonel Sanders? Chicken?
Movie's so fucking good.
My other favorite moment is like when they're trying to figure out the location of Vespa or like everyone else, and Colonel Sanders is like, "Give me the copy of Spaceballs on VHS." And then Dark Helmet takes him aside. He's like, "How can there be a VHS already? We're still in the middle of making it." And then they explain to them. They're like, "Oh, you know, there's technology that can create VHSs even before the film is done." So they like fast forward, and then all of a sudden they're looking at themselves like a live feed. What the hell am I looking at? When does this happen in the movie? Now. You're looking at now, sir. What happened to then? We passed then. When? Just now. When will then be now? Soon.
So good. That movie's so
I
good.
love this.
I
one.
love Spaceballs.
I want to watch this. Like, we should watch this after we're done.
I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes.
How many assholes we got on this ship anyhow? Yo! I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes.
And then the fucking, when, I can't remember who it is, but he was like, "What did I tell you about wearing that helmet in front of me? I feel like you're making faces at me under there."
Yeah, then...
And he's like making
That was President
faces.
Scroom.
Yeah.
And then he turns around and the helmet goes up and he's just like...
So good.
I see your Schwartz is as big as mine.
Oh my god, that movie's so funny.
What I love in... like,
Fooled you.
oh, yeah. I quote that all the time. So this is part where Dark Helmet lures Princess Vespa out of the base they're hiding in the desert by pretending to be
Her dad.
And then as you know, Dot Matrix is at the last side is like, "Vespa, no!" And then she sees Dark Helmet, fades into his arms, and then he's just like, "Fooled you."
So good. Although, to be honest, Mel Brooks doesn't fucking miss.
My other favorite moment, this is just us quoting parts from the movie.
So good.
My other favorite part is when Lone Star and Dark Helmet are having the battle, and then they stop for a second, and Dark Helmet's just like, "We're evenly matched. Put her there." And, you know, they go to shake hands, and he takes his brain. He's like, "You
fell for the
I
oldest
can't believe
book in
you
the
fell
trick-
for the oldest trick in the
book.
book. What a goof."
What a goof. So good.
I think another line that gets me is like when they're ready to leave the planet and Lone Star is talking to Yogurt, and he's like, "Will we ever see each other again?" And then Yogurt's like, "Who knows? Maybe we'll all meet again in Spaceballs 2, the search for more money."
The search for more money.
Which, actually, Mel Brooks has said that he's interested in actually making a Spaceballs 2.
That would be amazing.
But any more we gotta say on that before we close off the episode? Because at this point, I feel like we're just like everything. We're just
spend
like
the rest of the time quoting Spaceballs.
right. Anything else about, I guess, Star Wars? Anything we talked about? Star Wars in general?
No, I think we covered it all. It's a pretty good Star Wars month.
I would say pretty good Star Wars too, and I will say I'm proud of this episode. I feel like we got a lot of good points out.
Even though 90% of it was just movie quotes.
90% of it was movie quotes. Well, yeah, I mean,
And then you made fun of me for my Poppy Pedro Pascal.
well, I mean, even before editing, this is like an hour 15 long episode. But yeah, I guess with that, it was a good Star Wars month. I don't know what we'll talk about next month for Star Wars month, but we'll see. Maybe there's gonna be
Next month for Star Wars month?
or next year for Star Wars month. You know, maybe there'll be a lot
Well,
more
by
stuff.
then, the Acolytes will have been out.
Yeah, by then Acolyte will have come out, probably plus other stuff too.
Yeah. Maybe a Mandalorian season 4?
Maybe.
Mayhaps.
Maybe we'll see. But as far as the theme next month, I don't know. Ain't decided that yet.
I have a couple ideas.
Well, we can talk about that later. But until then, Dorian's going to stream at me, and I'm going to call this an episode. Hope you guys drink plenty of water. Shut your mouth. Did you want to do the outro, Dorian? Huh? Did you? I didn't think so.
Get you a
Anyway,
nice crispy Sprite.
drink plenty of water. Do positive things out there. You know, be nice to one another. Or I will call your mothers because I know her number, and I will tell on you.
Oh, that's crispy.
That is a crispy take. I've been Cameron.
I like Kate.
And as always, may the force be with you and
Nerds
nerds
out.
out.